Good evening, everyone. I'm Riley King, and welcome to my pre-primary Democrats vying for first CD seat square off in debate. Let's begin. Debate begins at 7 p.m. at St. Anselm College in Manchester. A Granite State debate set for Wednesday night will involve the largely field of Democrats vying for the U.S. House seat to represent New Hampshire's 1st Congressional District. A Granite State debate record 11 candidates will take the stage. The debate can be seen live at 7 p.m. on WMUR TV, WMUR.com, and inside the WMUR app. And now, let's meet your 11 candidates. We begin with the first candidate. Meet Democrat Maura Sullivan, candidate for 1st District. Let's take a listen to the video from WMUR News 9, Adam Sexton.
From the first time she encountered a group of Marines, Maura Sullivan knew she wanted to join them.
It was the hardest working group of people and the most enthusiastic group of people I had ever met in my life. And they were committed to something so much larger than themselves. And I couldn't wait to be a part of it.
After college, she received her commission in June 2001. 3 months later came 9/11, and suddenly the world had changed for her and her fellow officers.
Many served multiple tours. The first combat casualty of the Iraq War was a friend and classmate of mine killed in Al Nasiriyah in March 2003. And many of my classmates, didn't come back the same way.
Sullivan served in Japan and Korea before doing a tour in Iraq in 2005, just after the second battle of Fallujah.
We were doing operations in and around the city of Fallujah, making sure people had the resources that they need, working alongside the Iraqis to reconstruct the city, providing combat logistics support. It's one of the kind of best and worst experiences of certainly of my life. You're touched and changed in a way that I never could have predicted by the people that you serve with, by the courage, by the selflessness, by the integrity.
Now Maura Sullivan wants to bring that Semper Fi spirit to Capitol Hill.
In the Marines, nobody ever asked what political party we were a part of. I mean, people barely even asked where we were from. We had a mission, and it was to work together and accomplish that mission. And that was supporting and defending the Constitution.
In Portsmouth, Adam Sexton, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go. And that is Maura Sullivan. The next candidate we're going to meet is Declan McCarran, candidate for 1st District. Let's take a look at the video.
Declan McCarran is a product of the Portsmouth neighborhood where he grew up. Here, he says his parents turned him loose in the summer to explore the world. For an adventurous kid, that meant doing things like jumping off the old Sarah Long Bridge.
It's a realization that you're still falling. It's long enough to think like, oh my God. And it's also a realization as a parent what you have to watch out for.
His competitive spirit made him one of the top rowers in the world, winning the famed Oxford-Cambridge boat race in 2010.
Rowing's a very specific sport. It's a sport for tall people that can't play basketball. And it's a sport that is basically you quit just a little bit after the other guy. That's the whole game. It is being tough enough to hold on just a little bit longer and to convince yourself and your teammates that you have the chance to just hold on for that extra second.
McCarran and his wife faced a much more serious challenge years later when she began suffering from a rare autoimmune disease.
There's days where Lori feels great, and there's days where she's the toughest person that I've ever met in my life.
McCarran says the financial struggles that came with hospitalizations and the 2 years it took to get a diagnosis showed him all he needed to see about the U.S. healthcare system. He wants to bring that perspective to Washington to effect change.
It was because I had a credit card and health insurance that we were able to not go bankrupt. That's crazy in this country. It's crazy that people are a happenstance away from losing everything that they've worked to build up over generations.
In Portsmouth, Adam Sexton, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And that was Steve Backlund. The next candidate we're going to meet is Mindy, candidate for 1st District. Let's take a listen to the video from WMUR News 9, Adam Sexton.
When drinking water contamination became a regional issue on the seacoast, Mindy Messmer says it didn't take long for her to realize that her life as a regular private citizen was over. She had to get involved.
When you have your son come home from school and talk about other kids being sick and other kids being concerned about it, and your own son is in that same situation, and you're wondering, you know, what is going to happen? I knew I had to do something.
Messmer was uniquely positioned to speak out. She's an environmental consultant with a focus on hydrogeology. She became a state rep and an outspoken advocate in Concord for raising drinking water standards.
It has been 25 years of inaction.
Her interest in science began at a young age.
I think I was a scientist from the time I was a little girl. I used to pick up rocks all the time on family vacations, and I had the best rock collection in 5th grade.
She's encouraged by the new emphasis being put on science education for girls, but she says when she graduated college and entered the workforce in the 1980s, it was a different world.
It was definitely a hard thing for a woman to sort of make their way. I was one of only 2 scientific women in the company that I worked in, and was put out in the field to work with people that really didn't want to be directed by women, like drillers at a drill rig. And I really had to figure out a way to sort of make it happen. You know, how was I going to use my ability to make sure that we got the work done and that these guys respected me and listened to me.
Now, Messmer says it's time for New Hampshire to send a woman scientist to Congress.
I think we need some more logic and some basic science to guide what we're doing in a lot of things.
In Rye, Adam Sexton, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. That was Mindy Messmer. The next candidate we're going to meet is Lincoln Seldepti, candidate for 1st CD. Let's take a listen to the video from WMUR News 9, Adam Sexton.
The Stratford County Courthouse is like a second home to Lincoln Soldati, who served as county attorney here from 1983 to 2000.
There used to be a joke in the courtroom because I would spend a lot of my time pacing this hallway. And they would always joke about the fact that I was going to wear out the carpet.
Soldati says when he started out, the criminal justice system was very different.
I found that a lot of things that was sort of the norm at the time ultimately made no sense. I mean, very few cases of child abuse, for example, were prosecuted. In part because there was an attitude, the attitude was, we can't subject these children. You know, and the younger the children, oh, we can't have them testify. It'll be too traumatic.
Soldati prosecuted more of those crimes by helping institute reforms that protected victims within the justice system. His biggest case came in the mid-90s when he prosecuted the so-called Pumpkin Man, a child predator whose trial drew national attention.
The circus atmosphere that sometimes can surround a notorious case of some sort, the important thing is to try to keep all of that out of what happens in the courtroom.
While Soldati classes the Pumpkin Man in the realm of the truly evil perpetrators he dealt with over the years, he says more often the courts deal with regular people who've made serious mistakes. Now he wants to bring a commitment to justice honed through a career in the law to Capitol Hill.
To me, it's all about social justice. It's about criminal justice. Justice is it's part of the fabric of my being in terms of my concerns and what's important to me.
Adam Sexton, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report, and that was Lincoln Sildowski. Next candidate we're going to meet is Naomi Andrews, candidate for the 1st CD. Let's take a listen to the video from WMUR News 9, Adam Sexton.
New York, we have to vote for and support Zephyr Teachout for Attorney General on Thursday, September 13th, and I want to tell you why.
Naomi Andrews lives in Epping, but you could say her real home is in New Hampshire's great outdoors.
Hiking mountains was always a part of my childhood. I would have the little walking stick. When I was about 18 months old or so, I'd be walking along and sometimes say, the bus stops here, and then Dad would have to carry a little bit.
Nowadays, she's the one setting the pace, and not just in the mountains. She's run several marathons and pushed beyond those limits, competing in the sport of ultra running.
A really special race was a 50-mile race that I did with my dad.
If you're wondering how someone runs for 50 continuous miles, so were we, as we tried to keep pace with Andrews, going up Mount Major in Alton.
I'm in the moment. I really enjoy the whole process. Breathing in the fresh air, hearing the birds, seeing the trees. But the secret for me is getting up early.
Andrews was among the first and closest supporters of Congresswoman Carol Shea Porter. She served for years alongside her as her chief of staff in Washington and as campaign manager back home. Win or lose, Shea Porter always focused on the grassroots.
It's about these dedicated, excited, enthusiastic supporters. We're all volunteer, and that's how we make it happen, is just connecting with people.
The parallels between summiting mountaintops and succeeding in politics are fairly obvious. Andrews says success on the hiking trail and the campaign trail is about knowing the territory and putting in the effort, something she hopes to be doing again soon on Capitol Hill.
You need to have the energy for it, and I definitely have the energy and that enthusiasm that I bring to both running and serving.
In Alton, Adam Sexton, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that report in that video. And that is Naomi Andrews. The next person we're going to meet is Terrence O'Rourke, candidate for 1st CD. Let's take a listen to the video from WMUR News 9, Adam Sexton.
For Terrence O'Rourke, military service is a family tradition.
My great-grandfather, who came from Ireland, he was in the Coast Artillery, and he served in Port of Boston during World War I. My grandfather, he was also in the Coast Artillery, served again outside of Boston in World War II. And my dad was a field artillery officer, and he served in Vietnam.
O'Rourke signed up for, what else, the Army Artillery, and became an officer. But when he served in Iraq in 2006, the mission was on the ground, assisting Iraqi forces in eliminating pockets of al-Qaeda resistance in hotspots like Ramadi. There, O'Rourke led troops in urban combat.
Sort of the fear factor is back here, but it is there, and there's like a little voice telling you, like, you know, this is really dangerous, you know, and you push it back, and you're driving on your mission, you're on the radio, you're returning fire, you're moving people around, but oh, it's there, and then as soon as it's over, you have that moment like, wow, that was really dangerous.
When he came home, O'Rourke became a federal prosecutor, married, and started a family.
No matter what job you're doing, and no matter how bad the day was, there's no better feeling when you open the door, and there are these little people who are happy to see you.
As for whether there will be a 5th generation O'Rourke in the field artillery,
the little one, Evie, she's been jumping off all these couches. I told my wife, that girl's going to be airborne right there.
O'Rourke says he won't be pushing military service on his kids. That's something they can choose on their own. But if he's elected to Congress, this former soldier says he'll work to bring troops home from Afghanistan and Iraq and advocate unapologetically for peace.
They're not going to push me around, and I'll take that fighting attitude right down to Washington.
Adam Sexton, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video. And that was Terrence O'Rourke. The next person we're going to meet is Chris Pappas, candidate for the 1st